I'm Zach Workman. I'm from the city of Pittsburgh. Bridge engineer with the city for 4 years. I'm co-presenting with Ruzzi from WSP. He's previously worked at PennDOT for 21 years. And here to present about a bridge asset management program that the city has undertaken in the last year. So I'm just going to do a quick little background about the city and the department I work for, mobility and infrastructure, and the catalyst for why we pursued a bridge asset management program. And then I'll hand it off to Lou, who's going to go through a lot of the details of the program and take from there. So I think I might be one of the few local agencies in the room. I know there's a lot of members from the DOTs here. I think Pittsburgh has maybe kind of a unique world that we live in, which the city itself owns, maintains 145 bridges, and that's in addition to the bridges maintained by the local PennDOT district, Allegheny County, the transit agencies and the railroads. So we have 145 bridges in our purview, and the city itself was in what's called Act 47, which is basically like bankruptcy management from 2003 to 2018. And in that time, I've heard from our paving division that the city was paving some roads and mowing the lawns, cutting grass, and that was maintenance in the city of Pittsburgh through the 2010s and into 2020. So as we're coming out of bankruptcy protection, the mayor, looking to modernize city streets, improve assets in the right-of-way, formed the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. And so we have goals that roads are safe, that people have alternative means of getting to their destination. And one facet of that is kind of improving, modernizing, getting caught up with all the actual structures assets in the city. So as I said, we have our bridges. We have about 700 sets of city steps. It's very steep terrain, and this connects old mills that no longer exist to old communities up on hilltops. About 680 retaining walls, and way too many landslides in the last few years. So we've been keeping busy. This is kind of a snapshot of our projects at the end of 2021. We had a new highway cap that was wrapping up construction. I know these projects have been going on throughout the country. That was a really cool project to be involved with. We had some superstructure replacements. We're working on a preservation package. We have a line item with PennDOT, so we're pursuing, annual preservation bridge work. We had 5 bridges in preliminary engineering, another 5 in planning and scoping, and we had a backlog of non-NBIS bridges with either outdated or in some cases no inspection history, and we're getting caught up on that. So that's at the end of 2021, and January 28th, 2022, I'm sure a lot of people in this room are familiar, we had the collapse of the Fern Hollow Bridge. It was not an old structure. It's constructed in 1973. It was a K-frame with two girder system constructed with Corten weathering steel. And there's a lot of information online about the investigation by NTSB and the findings of that. But the bridge, this really, Pittsburgh takes a lot of pride in its bridges. We call ourselves the city of bridges, and I think something like this happening really cut deep in the community and really had both the city and our department asking, how did we get here, and what are we not seeing? Like, what are our blind spots? So with that, our mayor issued a call to develop a comprehensive bridge asset management program with the goal of reviewing and evaluating the condition of all of the city bridges and identifying any immediate or near-term needs, and also evaluating and providing recommendations about how this relatively young and very small department needed to grow in order to meet the needs for the assets that we had. So I'm going to hand it off to Lou to talk about how that program came together. But on August 4th of the year, we awarded the contract to WSP. So.
Okay, thanks, Zach. As Zach said, we were awarded a contract on August 4th, but it did take to the 31st of August to get the agreement signed and actually given notice to proceed. And with that, we had to rush to get task 2 done, which was a report to the mayor. We did submit it by October, but it didn't, through back and forth and reviews, I think it got finalized around December in time for the opening of the Fern Hollow Bridge, so that worked out for the mayor. But as part of the task that we did, task 2 was to review current bridge inspection documents and evaluate the bridge conditions of the 145 bridges, then develop a list of intermediate and near-term needs, review and compare the city's current repair plans against against what we were proposing, develop some recommended strategies and timeframes for preventive and routine maintenance, and then look at their policies, develop recommended intervals for bridge rehab and replacement, develop a plan to create a bridge maintenance division and also bridge structure design staff, and recommend ways to get projects basically from idea to construction more quickly. Work order 2, as a result of some of the work we did, the city wanted us to get 9 pedestrian bridges inspected on top of the work we had previously done, and these were some of the bridges there. There's a number of large pedestrian bridges on these, including Hot Metal, which crosses the Monongahela River. Fort Duquesne is actually attached to the Fort Duquesne bridge that goes over the Allegheny River. So these were some significant structures that we were asked to inspect. With that, we compromised the experienced team of bridge inspectors and consultants that had done bridge inspection in the Pittsburgh area for a number of years. WSP led the effort. We had A&A, who was the DBE. They had to actually have like 18% of the work. Azalea is the WBE. They were 7%, I believe. And then Aertia was the veterans-owned business, and they did the drone work for the project. But we had others that were very experienced companies like MAC and SAI, JMT. R was on board to help with any bridge care programming work, which I'll get into later. And then ALM actually had Alex Schuley, who was a former director of the city of Pittsburgh, on our team as well. Helped out with some of the reviews. And then JMT, of course, they also helped out with the processes, and they had former PennDOT staff from bridge maintenance and city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County staff that actually knew some of the processes. So I thought we assembled a nice team for this project. One of the first things we did is we wanted to make sure we had a site that everybody could share information, so we created a SharePoint site where documents could be shared, inspection reports, plans, and photos all could be shared. We stored reports there. We made submissions through there. And probably the biggest thing was, as we were identifying things in the inspection reports, we would like to get the status off the city, and they were able to go right into the same spreadsheet and say, hey, this one's done. You can take that off the list. This can move from a 1 to a 3 or whatever. So that was probably one of the biggest highlights of the SharePoint site. Just a little bit of a breakdown of, because of the way the percentages had to go for the DBEs and minority subs, WSP only had 22 of the bridges, but you could see somebody like A&A, who was the DBE, they had to do 65 of the bridges, and so on there. And then the drone flights, we decided on about 16 bridges, and we chose ones that were pretty high off the ground, ones that weren't typically always accessed. The entire bridge wasn't accessed through a crane or a lift truck, and tried to not do them over major roads, but in some cases we had to do that. Some of the key focuses on task 2, review and evaluating existing bridge reports. We'd look for things like, does the weight limit match the analysis in the file? Is the analysis reasonably modeled? Has there been any intermediate action taken on any of the repairs? Do the ratings generally match the photo? So this wasn't, we didn't go out in the field except for some spot checks on the poor bridges and the drone field views. So it was it was definitely an office review that was part of our work. And you can see some of the other items that were there that we looked at. This was an example of some of the findings. This is the Charles Anderson Bridge, where WSP had recommended to reanalyze the bridge, and in particular, as a result of that reanalysis, the city had the gusset plate reanalyzed, and as a result, the bridge was immediately closed, and now they're undergoing an immediate rehab of the project, or the bridge, to be let at the end of this year. So one good thing that came out of it. The other thing I wanted to say with the report to the mayor is we didn't think there was any other fern hollows out there. I guess this Charles Anderson came close, but it wasn't that, we did identify it in enough time to get it closed. But other than that, the rest of the bridges, there wasn't any fern hollows out there that we saw. Talking about the drone a little bit and some of the advantages there is, especially this is the Swindell Bridge over I-279. There's about 4 lanes and a ramp there. Tough to get in there, when you bend that crane over there and trying to snake up under the truss. And the latest drone that we had working on this was pretty amazing to me. I had seen drones in the past where if you got under a structure like that and you lost signal, it would fall to the ground. This one did not do that. It also had battery life that was about 20 to 30 minutes, and it would, when the battery went out, it would return to base. So you didn't have that. Although we did have MPT set up, you didn't worry about that as much falling onto I-279. And the pictures were really great. I've never seen pictures come from a drone like this in the past, and it was definitely a good way to help the city. In particular, they wanted to do a repair contract for Swindell Bridge, and this really helped them showing how to access the area for the contractors. One of the things we wanted to do is compare a conventional inspection to a drone inspection, and you can see the dollar comparison there. And the conclusion we had was that if you used the drone without the MPT, it was a little bit cheaper, but if you added the MPT, it was cheaper. So one of the findings that we had there. And the other thing, again, I said this already, but the pictures, this first picture you can see of the 30th Street Bridge over the Allegheny, this is the back channel, right, over back channel of the Allegheny River. Kind of typical picture in the report. And not that you couldn't get this kind of picture with a regular inspection, but in this case we got better pictures, and it really emphasized the cracks and the repair work that needed to be done. And as part of this, I think, the city was going out to do a preservation project anyway on it, and they were able to add this kind of work to the project because of the drone inspection. This is a video. I don't know if we can get this to work. Yeah, it is working there. So, again, this is Swindell Bridge over I-279, and you can see how clear those pictures are. The water that was leaking from there was dropping onto I-279, This was a concern because this bridge has had a history of things falling, between the SIPs and part of an expansion dam falling onto 279 in the past. So this kind of just reiterated, how good inspection and finding, getting up in there really close can find these kinds of details. Task 3A, this is where we looked at developing intermediate and near-term needs. Intermediate needs were defined as zeros and ones. Zeros have to be done within a week. Ones have to be done within 6 months. Near-term needs were maintenance priority 2s, would have to be done before the next inspection or about 2 years later. The team looked at all the different needs and updated all the costs for if a contractor was going to do these repairs. So city had a good idea for budgeting. We also, WSP went out and did a close review of not the whole bridge, but the maintenance priorities and some of the key areas on the 32 poor bridges in the city's inventory. And then again, we recommended any inspection, analysis, or maintenance priorities on top of what was already in the report. 3B, we reviewed and compared the city's current repair plan and the TIP against some of the maintenance priorities that were already out there against what work had been done recently. And, to make, if necessary, we changed the priorities. We grouped them by different types of bridges, type of work, and geographical locations so they could put those in future bridge maintenance contracts. We also recommended new priorities for the TIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program, the local planning document for the area. 4A is develop recommended strategies and timeframes for preventive maintenance and routine maintenance. So we looked at things like bridge cleaning and washing, removing combustible materials from under bridges, a lot of homeless in the area that had a lot of materials under that could catch fire. In fact, we had one catch fire while we were in February while we were going through this review. Joint replacement was another group, painting, deck overlays, scar and undermining, and then metal culvert paving, which I had done a few of those projects when I was at PennDOT and to extend the life of those metal culverts. 4B was recommending intervals for capital bridge projects, so we'd get into recommending preservation, rehab, and full replacement. Some of the time frames we were looking at were 15 to 20 years for preservation projects, 40 to 45 years for deck replacements unless it had an overlay on it, which could extend that to 60 years, 160-year life for major bridge replacements, 100 to 120-year life for the other bridges, and 40 years life cycle on metal culverts. Now, I did want to mention, too, that PennDOT, Jason Bruner and his crew came out to the city, and we looked at Bridge Care, which is their program that helps to look at data in BMS and then provide a type of scope of work and an estimate of a project, of a proposed project. We ran that program against city bridge data to help get an idea of what the program should look like, and it worked out pretty good, in my opinion. I think, I think in general we were in agreement with most of what Bridge Care said. It might have been a little bit conservative, but in the end I thought it was in good agreement with what we had proposed prior to making that run. So I wanted to thank Jason because he really went out of his way to help the city with those runs, those Bridge Care runs, and we're continuing to have a good relationship with the city. We can run that anytime it's needed to help them out. Whoops. On 5A, again, we looked at different staffing compared to PennDOT District 11, which was my old district, Allegheny County, Public Works, Beaver County, cities of Cleveland and Cincinnati. And we had meetings with PennDOT District 11, talked on the phone with Allegheny County, Beaver County, and made some recommendations for the city. We recommended an additional 17 staff for the city, either engineering, bridge maintenance coordinator, bridge maintenance repair people, plus design staff. And we also had a strategy for continued review and improvement on that plan. And finally, 5C and 5D, just recommended processes for state and federal funding, and then city-owned, city-funded projects. A lot of meetings on this, discussions with PennDOT about things like reimbursement agreements and having a bridge-specific, city-specific bridge reimbursement agreement. Had meetings between Office of Management and Budget, Law Department, DOMI, trying to find out the different ways that they can improve those processes. We're still working through that. We submitted our draft, but we're going to have a workshop to really hash this out probably in October and trying to finalize the new procedures to help them get, again, quickly from idea to construction as quickly as possible. We also recommended some processes for additional funding, looking for different grants and different ways that projects get funded by PennDOT and others. And then just to touch on the work order 2, which really didn't have, doing those 9 pedestrian bridges, which really didn't have good records from recent inspections. The picture you see there is the Mon Wharf, Hot Metal, thanks Zach, the Hot Metal Bridge over the Monongahela River. And we were using a bucket boat there, which is a neat tool, if you guys ever used that, from Harcon, and able to reach some areas pretty quickly. And this resulted in a priority 0 being identified, which what was it, in December, right before Christmas last year, and the city jumped on it, got it done in 7 days, and it's a nice Christmas present for the city. So in summary, the Bridge Asset Management Program has aided the city to put them in a good position to develop an excellent bridge program. We don't expect things to happen overnight, but at least they got a good path moving forward. The city's been working to improve collaboration and communication between the departments, agencies, and other owners in the region. And hopefully the investment by the city, state, and federal governments and the SPC, the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission, are vital to help advance this work, which seems like they've been really helpful to the city getting, anytime they request new money for projects, they've been getting it from the region, from what I can tell. So, and with that, turn it over to Zach here for final comments.
Yeah, thank you, Lou. So, we really had to hit the ground running January 28th last year, and in the last 17 months now, I think I'm proud to say we've accomplished a lot. We were an extremely small department. There was myself and my supervisor, and we've now doubled. We've got 4 bridge engineers. We're looking to hire out a bridge maintenance unit that will both initially begin working with contractors, but there's a goal to actually expand to in-house capabilities. So we're doing some of the recommended maintenance in-house, bridge washing, maybe resealing some joints, repairing scuppers, just kind of maintenance 101 that was being neglected for a long time. We've been, we kind of revamped, modernized all of our asset tracking. I think this was something that, as previous generation of employees was retiring, their knowledge was going with them. We had to kind of learn from scratch and map out where things were and the conditions everything was in. Make sure that we were comfortable with what we were learning from our inspectors, and that the inspectors knew what to look for when they were going out there. And for me, I think personally, it's been kind of one of the most valuable things in this last year has really been meeting monthly with our inspectors, outside consultants about everything they've looked at the previous month and everything they're going to look at in the next month. It gives us both, a little bit of lead time if we know that, the Swindell Bridge, which we mentioned a few times, if that one's coming up for this next inspection, we're getting our maintenance crews lined up because we know there's always the next thing coming. And also, we're making sure that the load ratings on file that everyone's comfortable with what's been documented and that it's consistent with what we're seeing out there today. I just want to say that after the first presentation this morning by DelDOT, in which they're summarizing how they're maintaining, I think 85% of the bridges are in good condition, and their goal is 1% or less in poor condition. Lou did mention we have 32 bridges. I think it's slipped up. It might be 35 now. Bridges in poor condition out of 145. I know that for local municipalities, our numbers are extremely high relative to some of the states who've been aggressively tackling these problems. But I know we're not the only city that has these kinds of efforts ahead of us. So, hopefully with the Fern Hollow Bridge was a wake-up call, not just for Pittsburgh, but for other kind of struggling municipalities across the country. And we'll see more investment and preservation in years to come. So with that, just want to point out this is the new bridge. It reopened to traffic in December. There's a few final works that dragged on into the spring, but we're proud to be able to say that the bridge opened within a year, and we've got a strong asset management program moving forward. So thank you.
I think we have time for one question. Does anybody have a question? Everybody's ready to break, aren't you? Oh, there's one. I know I'd count on you, Dick.
Yeah, Zach, do you guys issue overweight permits? And was that part of something that WSP looked into, that process?
Occasionally, we have seen a few overweight permits, and actually one of them was for the beams of this bridge. For the most part, there's enough state routes that it's not really an issue coming into city streets, but it has happened on a few occasions.
I just wanted to mention one other thing too. I mean, I'm the talking head up here, but Alex Byer back there, my colleague, she does all the real work. And I just wanted to recognize her for all the work that she does to get this work done. Alex, just raise your hand there. Thank you.